Hello and welcome to this screencast that will help you prepare for the learning and teaching session next week on Wednesday. My name is Michael Cole, and in this recording I will be taking you very briefly through a little of the theory that underpins the 3 online activities that Gabriella and I will be demonstrating to you next week. We hope that these 3 strategies will help you in your planning towards good student engagement in a blended online learning environment. By considering the theory now in advance, we'll have more time next week for discussion about these practical applications. An interactive photo essay, use of social media, and the workshops function within Moodle. So, why are we talking about theory first? Well, in Advanced HE, a recent report entitled What Works for Student Retention and Success in HE, they stated that specific interventions were not necessarily to be recommended over and above other specific interventions. Rather, they suggested that the institution, department, programme and module should all nurture a culture of belonging through the way they function. Meaning, whatever you take from the session next week, the principles underpinning the examples are more important than the examples themselves, particularly as we move to an online blended learning approach. In that same report, it was stated that at the heart of successful retention and success lies a strong sense of belonging for all students. So what is belonging? And what about mattering or fitting in? Well, according to Strayhorn, belonging has several elements that could be summarised as a feeling of interconnectedness, and we're particularly talking about with us as lecturers, but also very importantly with their peers, and feeling supported. Schlossberg uses the term mattering, which is very closely related and overlaps in many ways with belonging, but perhaps has more of a focus on the student feeling like they are part of something which values them. You know, like if they were not to join in a discussion or a tutorial, for example, that they would be missed or their lack of contribution would affect the group. Now, what unites these concepts, for me at least, is the African concept of Ubuntu, which is best described in the saying, I am because we are, which for those of you familiar with René Descartes, suggests a worldview that is quite different to his I think, therefore I am. What I mean by this is that rather than the more often individualistic or meritocratic notions that are implicit in a Cartesian approach, we can choose to view our role as lecturers more as subject area specialist companions who can co-create and scaffold communities of practice that embrace togetherness. So far we haven't mentioned fitting in. Everyone wants to fit in, right? Well, maybe not. Because if we look at the work of Brené Brown, amongst others, we might begin to understand that fitting in often requires us to change ourselves to gain acceptance. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is always a bad thing. There are some situations that require adaptation. For example, when helping students develop their understanding of what it means to be a healthcare professional, or what it means to be a safe practitioner in a lab setting. But if we look at the evidence around student experience and the evidence for traditional approaches to lectures, assessments and education in general, it's pretty clear that being required to fit into those ways, whether implicitly or explicitly, actually harms student engagement. So what we are trying to cultivate is a sense of belonging and mattering, and it's in these conditions that we hope to see a shift in traditional power dynamics and a move away from tolerance and assimilation towards a centering and celebration of doing things differently. Now, personally, I would argue that this is only the first steps towards a truly equitable learning and teaching experience, though that's a discussion for another day. But back to belonging. How do we foster belonging? Well, central to this is being a culturally sustaining lecturer. For some, this might come naturally. For others, it might be difficult or worrying. For some, we might feel we're great at it, but we should be aware that students might not feel the same way. And here I refer you to the data we collected for the Race Equality Charter Mark in 2018, which showed a large discrepancy between lecturers' self-reported levels of cultural competency and our students' views. So at this point, let's take a quick look at where culturally sustaining teaching fits into my personal pedagogical approach. As you can see here, my interpretation of the evidence is that culturally sustaining teaching is vital for optimising students' achievement. And that's not just my opinion, you can easily find the data on this. I also believe that cognitive learning theories are important, and also that anti-racist pedagogies are vital, but again we'll leave those discussions for another time. So as we come to the end of this short recording, let's take a look at a couple of slides that help us to understand what characterises a culturally sustaining lecturer. Such a lecturer reflects on their cultural positioning, history and identity and tries to become more aware of the same for each of their students as individuals, so that they can adapt their approaches. This helps to create a rapport, and by rapport I don't mean that necessarily you have to be fist bumping a student all the time, or having an amazingly fun conversation every time you meet, but it does suggest that the student and you have somewhat a good understanding of where each other is coming from. Now this in turn helps to develop affective trust, meaning that the student feels like they trust that you want the best for them and not just for your module results or because it's a job that you go to. And this all leads to enhanced belonging and could be considered, as mentioned earlier, a manifestation of Ubuntu. So in summary, what do culturally sustaining online lectures do? Well, next week we'll see 3 examples of trying to put that into practice. But for now, here are 4 central principles that you can start to think about. Now maybe you do all 4 already and you can teach Gabriella and I a thing or two about it. Maybe you're concerned about how to achieve this online. Whatever your position, we look forward to joining together next week so that we can listen to your contributions and work together in sharing good practice so that our students benefit. Finally, if you have time, please do engage with the interactive infographic that you should have received via Teams or email. And my name is Michael Cole, and this has been a micro session on the theory behind student belonging in online learning. Bye for now.